Lynn Miller with us today, which has been a great time coming because we got a chance to meet him at the Alaska NVS trip. And so Matt Creve and I, we got back and Meg, and it's like we mentioned to the church, like, hey, if we ever need a speaker and stuff, we know this really great guy.
So you can blame Mennonite Disaster Service for this, for what you are about to receive.
But what was also really interesting too, after coming back, we kind of mentioned, and there are several people in our congregation, like, you mean Lynn Miller from, Fruits of Living and stuff, book, and he's like, yeah. And so, so a lot of you probably recognize the book he's written. He's written 3 different ones and stuff, but we'll be touching on one of those today. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. Just so that you are aware, that commercial break here, the 2 books that I'm most responsible for better or for worse, are on a table on the back there. $10 each, cheap, no problem. So take cash. So. And by the way, it wasn't just my First Fruits Living material that got me started. This young woman here remembers me from a conference back in the 80s at Warsaw, Indiana, of all places, where I think I taught something called shared praxis. It's a way of teaching. Okay. From those of you in the back, can you hear me? If anybody who can't hear me, raise their hand. That's a joke. Come on. Well, what we're going to do this morning is sort of tackle the idea here. Here she comes. Yes, the famous young woman that I met in Willow, Alaska. Bella. Let me tell you, I have met a lot of young people, and I've worked with a lot of people. I went up there to do some block laying on this house, and I'm a mason, or I was. Her father taught me how to do that. And I'm used to, when you run out of mortar, yelling, "Mud!" right? This young woman was making mortar from sand we had to make from a pile of gravel, and doing it on the ground with a shovel. And I turned around to yell, "Mud," and she's already there with the mud. She anticipated everything I needed. I wish more young people were like that. I have a grandson stands there with his hands in his pocket, waiting for me to tell him what to do. Well, the idea that came of this book started with a telephone call. I was sitting in my office. We live in Bluffton, Ohio now, and it was really sort of strange. It was from a Consumers Buyers Club. Do you have one of these around here? Where you give them, it was $800 cash, and you join this club, and then you get a discount on everything that they have. They don't actually have anything, but they have kind of a catalog of stuff, everything except houses and cars, refrigerators, tires, televisions, sort of pre-Amazon, okay, before internet, right? And they wanted me to come. I had already gotten a letter from them. That in the letter there was a car key, and they say, well, if you come and listen to our sales pitch to join this club, you could try this key in a car. There's a Mercury Montego something, and if the car starts, you just won the car. If you don't win the car, you might win a Broyhill bedroom furniture suite. All kinds of dressers and tables and things. If you don't win that, you could win a Kawasaki ATV 4-wheeler, run around, chase cows. Or if you don't win that, it could be $300 cash or $100 cash. No, it was $1,000 cash or $300 cash. And the last thing that you could win is 2 nights in an old motel in Orlando, Florida, but you had to pay to get there. And I know what this is, right? We had one in Goshen when I was in seminary, and it lasted about 2 years, and then they disappeared with the money. So no more Consumer Buyers Club. So I put the envelope with the car key in the trash where it belonged, and then I got this phone call from a woman who said, "Mr. Miller, we'd like you to come and pick out your guaranteed prize." That's all, something guaranteed right there. I said, "Well, thank you, but I've looked at all those prizes and I don't want any." And there was this pause, and she said, "Well, Mr. Miller, surely you would want an extra $300 cash." And I said, "No, I have enough cash, and I don't need or want any more cash." And the next thing I heard was, click. She hung up on me. very often get, telemarketers hanging up on you. The next call was from a guy, a local contractor doing vinyl siding. Now, I live in a barn. We bought an old wooden barn built in the 1800s and hand-hewn oak beams, and I like wood and I like open spaces. But it just has old barn siding on it. And this guy was saying, we have a really good deal on leftover vinyl siding. And I said just about the same thing. Thank you very much, but my barn and I have enough vinyl siding. And again, before I could finish, he hung up. Now, third was some guy in Florida selling a 5-gallon can of bacteria for my septic system. So it makes it work better. I said, now look, I went to school, and I built houses. Septic systems work because you use them. You don't need to add bacteria. It's just every time you use a toilet, you add bacteria. So I said, thank you very much, but my septic tank and I have enough bacteria. And he hung up. I got to thinking, this is really strange. What is it about this word enough that has the power to get telemarketers to hang up on you? And what I discovered was it's a word we don't use very much. Well, Mom probably said, I've had enough of this. She probably said that to one or two of the girls. But yeah, no, we don't use the word enough when it comes to material things because we don't know what enough is. And my job this morning is to help you think about how do you define when you have had enough of something. Most of everything we buy, well, maybe the exception of milk or laundry soap, is based on it's better than something else, or bigger, or larger, or cheaper, right? We have all kinds of advertising and adverbs or adjectives that tell us why we should buy this instead of something else. And most of it is based on more or bigger instead of enough. Have you ever seen an advertisement? This car is good enough for you. No? Yeah, neither have I. It's really kind of stuff. I don't think it has to be that way, that we are addicted to having more or bigger or better. I think we can get away from that, but you have to think about why they sell stuff to us like that. And the clue that I found was in an advertisement in the New Yorker magazine, which is a great magazine, by the way, but has the worst advertising. It's all based on luxury stuff, $1,000 watches. I don't even have any one watch. Why would I want to pay a lot of money for a Rolex, no matter what the price is? I don't care what time it is. Well, you have a clock. I do care, but I'm not that worried about time. But the question is, why do we get sort of hooked into this idea that something is better? And in that New Yorker ad, there was a picture. It was a fold out the page like this. So it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 page ad, a really expensive ad. Silver background of black words, and on one side it said words like adventurous and awe-inspiring and just all kinds of those big words that make you go, wow, right? Then they open it up, and here's this car. It's sort of a squashed down, looked like an elephant sat on a minivan, SUV, the new Lexus SUV. I'm sorry, if you have one, please ignore what I just said. But then it said something very interesting. When you opened it up, it said, it is, and then you are. Get the point? You buy this car because it's awe-inspiring, then you will be awe-inspiring, right? You buy this car because it is adventurous, you will be adventurous, right? What's happened is that we have been trained to think that what we own, what we buy, says something about us. It works two ways. One is it works in the luxury way, like that Lexus. The other one works the other way, back in the 70s, and sort of I grew up overseas in Japan and France. I came back and went to the Navy, joined the Navy, spent 10 years in the military, and got out and went to the University of Washington right in 1968, the middle of the 60s, the hippie thing in Seattle, Washington, right? And if you were really with it, then you owned an old Volvo station wagon, right? Because it said something about you. I mean, I like Volvos. We had 240DLs, a couple of them. That's a good car. You can actually work on the thing, and you don't have to hire somebody to fix stuff. But you bought the car because it said something about you. Now, I'm not immune to this. I have truck. We heat with firewood in this barn we live in with a big wood stove, so I have to have a truck to haul firewood. It's a 1988 Chevy flatbed. That so old truck says something about me, that I keep things for a long time. And I got it from my father. He had a 57 Mercedes. He actually gave it to me when he had a stroke, and I drove it across the country. I thought it was pretty cool. This car, the odometer stopped running at 500,000 at 500,000 miles. So I have no idea how many miles on it. I drove across the country. I passed up a new Mercedes in the mountains with a hood up and steam coming out. Right? I got to a Mennonite church where I pastored, South East Bend Mennonite Church in West Liberty, Ohio. And all the way across the country, people would go past me, and then they would come back and they go, "Oh, nice car." You know, so it's kind of beat up. It had been hurt during the earthquake out there, but it had never been restored. It was just faded paint. But it was a Mercedes, and an antique Mercedes, right? I got to West Liberty, Ohio, and the Mennonites like, "What are you driving a Mercedes for? Who do you think you are?" I had to get rid of the car. You couldn't pastor these Mennonites in West Liberty, Ohio, and drive a Mercedes. Despite the fact that the heroes of the Mennonite church back then, J. Otis Yoder, George Brunk, they all drove fancy cars, but I wasn't allowed to. The point is that what we drive, where we live, the clothes we wear, all say something about us. And it's not a problem unless that's why we choose them, because we want to choose that image, right? It is, you are. You remember that. I wish I had a picture of that. You're not allowed to take pictures of advertising and use them because of copyright rules. But that really bothers me. In Philippians chapter 4, if you have a Bible, you can flip through there. There's this language about enough. And Paul says, "I have learned to be content." Well, that's the first rule. Contentment doesn't come automatically. You have to learn to be content. To learn to be content with what I have. He says, "I have learned the secret." Well, okay, this is kind of a secret. It's not something everybody knows. And then he finally ends that section there from the first 10 verses saying, "I can do everything through Christ who strengthens me." Right? What's interesting is that much of the advertising we get is that you will be a better and stronger person if you buy this. And Paul says, no. I can be strong through Christ, my relationship with Christ, not through the stuff that I buy and the stuff that I own. So what I want to go through is a little exercise here to help you think about this. Here's the pen here. We're thinking about what things mean, right? The car doesn't mean that I'm adventurous. I'm sorry, it's just a car. By the way, if you get over this idea that cars are important because of what they look like, you can do some really interesting when it comes to buy a car. You ever have trouble buying cars and you feel like you've been taken after you signed the deal and, oh, gee, I paid too much for that and all that kind of stuff? I figured out a way to buy a car where you don't have to do that. What I did is I decided that by looking at my history, and I'm not sure that works now, but it did back then, is that a car the meaning of a car is transportation. Not image, right? So let's put down some meanings here. A car is, I think, transportation. And transportation is worth 4.5 cents. Thank you. 4.5 cents a mile to me. So I went to dealer. I've done this 3 or 4 times. I say, okay, that's, by the way, 4.5 cents per future mile. I don't really care how many miles are on it. I want to know how many miles I'm going to get out of it, right, in the future. And most American cars, you can count on maybe 200,000. Foreign cars, some Toyota and some like that, you maybe get 300,000. I run them way past that, but I drive them until they die, and then we give them to our children. So not quite, but I hate selling cars. But I like buying cars because I go to the dealer and I say I want to buy a car. Certain size, like a Toyota Corolla. I happen to like those. I have a Geo Prism right now, 97 Geo Prism. It's a Toyota Corolla, except for the body. General Motors could not figure out how to build a decent car, so they hired Toyota to tell the workers how to build this car. Fremont, California, factory, they make Teslas there now, but a factory, Corollas came out one door, Prisms came out the other door. The car runs forever, nice car. I went to the dealer and I said, I need to buy a car about this size, and I will pay you 4.5 cents per future mile. And this dealer said, what? I said, well, you take the mileage on the car, subtract that from 300,000, multiply that times 4.5 cents. That's what I will pay you for it. Oh, the guy said, well, so don't have that. Okay, so I left. 2 months later, I get this phone call from him. He said, are you still looking for a car at 4.5 cents per future mile? I said, yeah. He said, well, we got a blue, I don't care what color it is. Well, I don't want those yellow ones. They look, well, anyway, if you have a yellow car, I'm sorry. He's a blue car, stick shift. I like stick shift because coming through the Rocky Mountains, I can put it in neutral. But I get great mileage coming down. I can coast for miles out there. I can coast halfway from Bluffton, Ohio to my house, and that's flat land. Maybe I'm going too fast to start with. Anyway, so I'm out there, and he said, and it was owned by a little old lady who never drove. Yeah, of course, naturally, right? So he said, and it has 80,000 miles on it. I said, great. Now, 80,000 minus 300, that's what? 220,000 times 4.5 cents. That's about what? And I did my thing. He said, and we want $6,000 for it. I said, great. He said, but if you buy it today, you've heard that one, right? Before somebody else does, right? Then you can get it, we have a discount. You can get it for $49.95. Yeah, great. So I got that car for less than 4 cents per future mile. The difference is that I knew what the car was worth to me. And what that did is it put us, the car dealer, and me on the same level. Instead of being an idiot instead of being for a person who's going to be swept away by what this car looks like, right? Or somebody else might buy it, right? I put myself on the same level as the dealer because I know what the car is worth. So what does the world tell us that cars are worth? About image, right? Cars, image, right?
Speed.
Huh? Speed. Comfort. Yeah. You got one of those with heated seats? Oh, yeah. Teenagers tell me privacy. I don't like that idea, but freedom, yep.
Connection with all the Bluetooth and fancy radio systems and stuff. Communication and connection.
That's a new idea. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've never heard that one. Thank you. Media connection. How about my 57 Mercedes? Huh? Status. Huh? I was out in Pennsylvania. The only car I've ever really wanted because of the make of it was a Jaguar. A 1952 Jaguar XK120. Oh, Jesus, a gorgeous car. You got fenders stick out like that. Great big headlights in between the fender. And I mean, it's just a nice looking car. I saw one in a car dealership. Stopped there. Got out, walked around. The guy said, you interested? I said, yeah, I'd really like that, but it wouldn't do me any good. Drive to a Mennonite church in a 52 Jaguar and preach about stewardship. That's not going to work. I'm sorry. So, okay, let's go to house. What's a house worth? What does a house mean to us? H-O-U. Yeah, I got it. What's a house mean to us? Shelter. Go to this house across the street. I'll tell you what that house means. Innovation. Yeah? Right? Yeah. Lots of good ideas in that house. What else?
Family.
Huh? Family. Yeah. I think that's why minivans became so popular, because of more space for more people, more kids. What else?
I heard on the radio yesterday that houses are just places to hold your stuff, so storage.
Yeah, storage. Okay. Yeah, I used to have fun in Pennsylvania. Don't take this personally. Driving around Sunday afternoon after church with the garage doors are open and see how many houses you can actually put a car in the garage. Don't take it personally. You got it, storage.
House could be status too.
Yeah, status, yeah. San Antonio, San Antonio, Texas. The airport there, when you land there, and I've worked there a couple times at conferences, you go over to this, you fly into this neighborhood just before the runway, which looks like a collection of small colleges. Huge brick mansions, unbelievable size, 3-car garage in the house, and then a building to put the RV and the boat and the rest of the stuff in. It was really, yeah, right. There's some status. The problem is somebody else built a bigger one down the street. So, but okay. Anyway, what else for house? How about home decoration? What do you call that? It gives you creation or creativity. Yeah. Okay, that's enough for house. Food. What does food mean to us? My house is in a barn. I can see the refrigerator from my desk. Bad idea. I get frustrated working on something, I go down to the refrigerator. Comfort. All right, nurses. What's food mean?
Nutrition.
Huh?
Nutrition.
Nutrition. Reward. If you don't get enough, pain. Or if you get the wrong kind. Apparently at the wedding yesterday, somebody has food poisoning. Oh, that's terrible. What else for food? Okay.
Well, I'm trying to think of the word. Entertainment.
Entertainment, yeah. Hospitality. Yeah, yeah, right. By the way, that works for house too, hospitality. We were put up in this amazing house because of their hospitality. All right. Oh, and management. You can't have a meeting in a Mennonite church without food. Okay, and the last thing, money. What does money mean to us? Security, yeah.
Freedom.
Huh? Freedom, yeah.
Comfort.
Status.
Huh?
Status.
Yeah, yeah. MMA sent me to corporations to argue with their management about how they did business. It was called shareholder activism. And they sent me to Round Rock, Texas, the Dell Corporation, and had a meeting with their management all morning. We had to pay, they didn't pay us to bring us there. We had to pay our own way to get there. They did provide us with a sandwich for lunch. I would agree with that. So we took the sandwich. And then Michael Dell walked in about 1 o'clock. He was a big, tall fellow, 7th richest man in the world, $17 billion back then. Sat down and said, "You have any questions?" And, this is the 7th richest man in the world. Oh. And people started firing questions at him. And one guy, Conrad McCarran from As You Sow Foundation in San Francisco, said, "Hey, we noticed in your supplier code, that's rules of how they expect people who sell things to them, expect them to behave, that you don't allow workers in Malaysia, for example, to form a union." And Michael Dell sat up and he said, "Unions never did any good for anybody." I said, whoa, wait a minute. And I shot back, "Where were you in 1968 in the Great Picker Strike in California? United Farm Workers stopped farmers from spraying pesticides on top of people out there working in the field. That union did a lot of good for a lot of people." And he shot back something, and I shot back something. And the guy next to me said, "Shut up, Miller. This is Michael Dell." And that meeting ended a little bit testy. We weren't friends, put it that way, at the end of the meeting. 2 months later, I get a call from a woman named Sherry Carley, and she says, "Lynn, you'll be interested in page 29 of the new supplier code." I said, "Really?" And you look it up online. They don't print that out anymore, but online. Page 29, they've added 4 new words, and the freedom to associate. I changed Michael Dell's mind about unions in that meeting, right? His money didn't mean anything to me. I don't care how much money he had or you have. You're still a human being, and you still have a conscience. And I can still argue with you if I disagree, right? Yeah, you can do that. By the way, you have to be in the building to do that, which is a good reason to become part of Everence, because they send people to corporations. I retired in 2006 from doing that. But they send people to corporations to discuss, not argue, but to discuss about how they treat the environment, how they treat employees, and that kind of thing. Everence is really good at that. There aren't very many mutual fund companies that do that. There's a few, but Everence does that. They do a good job at it. Okay, what else about money? Security, freedom, comfort, status?
Opportunity.
I'm sorry.
Opportunity.
Opportunity, yeah.
Responsibility.
Yeah. Investment. You got to have money to make money. And by the way, that also works for a house too. Some people buy houses as an investment, not just as shelter. Okay, I think we got enough there. Now the question is, are these good meanings? Do they work for us or do they work against us? Right? There's no reason to believe something that works against you, at least in my thinking, right? And some of them, they're not all bad, and they're not all good, but some of them, transportation makes a good sense. Image, are you kidding? Well, maybe, but no. Image? If you buy a brand new car because you like the way it looks, next year they'll change the model. Volvo does that all the time. I really like that 240DL. That was a good car. They don't make those anymore. Every time I find a car I like, they stop making them. Not image. Speed, come on. Although, by the way, I'm really very interested in how things have turned out in this country. We live right alongside I-75 from Detroit all the way down to Florida, right? I get on there we work at the Habitat Restore Monday mornings. I get on there to go down to Lima, and everybody passes me. And I'm going the speed limit. Comfort, yeah, okay. Privacy, well, maybe not. Freedom, yeah, it gets you to go somewhere, that you need to go. Media connection, okay. You can't do without the media, and you got to have it in your car. That's okay. So. Status, as soon as you buy a Jaguar, somebody else buys a Mercedes. I mean, come on. Okay. What about a house? Shelter, yeah, that makes sense. Innovation, yeah, okay. That's a way of using your creativity. That's down here somewhere too. Status, as soon as you build a fancy house, somebody else builds another one around the corner, so that doesn't work very well. Storage, maybe. I always wondered, if we didn't build 2-car garages and only built 1-car garages, would we buy less stuff? Oh, I don't know. It's just a thought here. Family, yeah. Hospitality, definitely. Okay. Investment, well, sometimes, but sometimes no. A lot of people got caught in 2008. You remember the mortgage crisis, So that doesn't work very well. Food, comfort, definitely. Oh, yeah. Nutrition, yep. Reward, maybe not. If you don't get enough, you have pain. Definitely hospitality. Yes. I cannot think of a place I've ever stayed or visited where I wasn't offered something to eat. And we're not the only culture, by the way. You go around the world. Linda and I do a lot of traveling. I've been in 40-some countries. If you meet somebody and they invite you in a home, you will be fed. That's part of human response. That's hospitality. Management, okay, well, you have to have food. Money, security, well, it depends. Some years, you feel pretty secure. In other years, you don't feel. 2008, 2009, people I knew who had lots of money were afraid that they were going to lose some of it, and they did. Savings went down. Remember that? Now, I retired in 2006, and we had a couple of investment accounts with brokerage, TD Ameritrade, for ourselves, retirement savings, and for our grandchildren. It's called a Coverdell. You can make deposits in that. It's tax-free. You don't pay taxes on it. And it eventually they can use it for educational expenses. And that worked out really well. But about 4 years ago, I decided I don't need any more savings. I don't know what I would do. I don't know what I'm going to do with the savings I have. So we moved it out of a risk, out of actual management, the stocks and those kind of things. And by the way, the best stocks to buy are index funds, and MMA has index funds. Because I don't have a chart with me, but I can prove to you that if you buy an index fund, you will do better than 93% of mutual fund managers every year. Now, the advertising you get says, oh, this fund is doing really, really well this year. But 2 years ago, it didn't. And 3 years, 4 years from now, it might not. The index fund evens that out. And 90-some% of the time, you do better than these, what they call stock pickers. And I took the investment course at Xavier University, investment management, portfolio analysis. And I got an A in the course, too, by the way. It was a really funny course. I was in voluntary service. Linda and I were, I was doing home repair in a neighborhood called East Garfield Park. And I was making, what'd they pay us? $40 a month and room and board. That was what we got, okay? Each of us, right? Another guy in that course he'd just sold a company. He had $14 million he didn't know what to do with. So he was taking the course to figure that out. He wanted to be his own money manager, right? He and I both enjoyed the course, and we both got A's. The rest of the people in the class were they're not fund managers. They wanted to be fund managers, stock pickers. They wanted to be high-priced people. Most of them were bond salesmen on the trading floor downstairs at the Mercantile Exchange. The really funny part about it was the only people who enjoyed that course were people who didn't need more money. He and I. He had too much. I had enough. And we really had a good time in that course. I mean, if you want to know, I could probably write down the dividend discount model for figuring out what a stock should be worth. It doesn't work anymore. People buy stocks because of the advertising they get about the company or something. But the point is that having lots of money doesn't always make you feel secure. That this is sort of an iffy one. Freedom, yeah, if you have enough, you have the freedom to buy something you need, right? That works pretty well. Comfort, sometimes not. Status, no, somebody else always has more money than you. How many billionaires do you know that are happy? Well, maybe you don't know any, but still. Yeah. Opportunity, yes, definitely. Responsibility, definitely. And investment, definitely. Okay? Now the question is, which of these meanings are working for you instead of against you? And I want to suggest, if you think a car means status, that's working against you. You're going to be paying more and being less happy because status changes all the time, right? If a car transportation that's the meaning, then you'll be surprised how happy you can be with the car you have or the car you're going to get at 4.5 cents per future mile. You should write that down. That's an interesting formula. I don't know if that's still true. I think it probably is. 4.5 cents per future mile. Remember, just subtract the miles on the car from what you think you can get out of it. And that's what and you'd be amazed what car dealers do when you say that. Any car dealers here? Well, sometimes that works like a charm with these people. Here's another one that works. Telling somebody you have a telemarketer, you have enough of something. That's really powerful. The other thing is people who are raising money, fundraisers, and they call you. Linda and I, years and years ago, down in West Liberty, Ohio, we started a bank account called God's Account. Because in 2 Corinthians 9, it says that we have so much, we have an abundance for every good work. So it was called the Good Works account. We put everything we didn't need at the end of the month into that account, right? So we get a telephone call from fundraisers, and they say, oh, we're doing this ministry here, and then we need this, and I would say, oh, thank goodness you called. We have all this money, we didn't know where to send it. And they go, really? Yeah, we have a checking account that belongs to God, and that money, we're supposed to get rid of that money. Say, oh, that's wonderful. I say, yes. And if you'll send us a recent financial statement, a description of what your ministry does, and an address that we can come and visit you, we'll be glad to send you some of God's money. You know what you hear next most of the time? Click. Yeah. So there's two things I want you to remember, these two things, right? The way to get rid of telemarketers is thank you very much, but I have enough of something, right? And the way to get rid of fundraisers is we have all this money we need to get rid of. Thank you for calling. And if you'll send us a recent financial statement, a place to come and visit you, and a description of what you do, we'll be glad to consider you. It's amazing how powerful those two things are. Okay, so the point is here, if car equals transportation, then it's going to work for you. If a house equals shelter and hospitality, by the way, those two things, and a car hospitality, my wife, not so much now, but used to drive local, we have a Mennonite nursing facility called Mennonite Memorial Home, and drive patients, older people to a hospital, doctor's appointment. So a car can be hospitality. Food, yeah, nutrition is the best for food and hospitality. And money, security, maybe. Some freedom, the ability to but there's one more on here that I don't know if you've thought about, is generosity. I'm on a crusade to recover the original meaning of liberal. In the Bible, in 2 Corinthians 9, Paul says, we have been enriched for all liberality. That word means generous. I'm not saying anything about conservative. I'm just saying to be liberal means to be generous. Maybe we don't do it very well, I would agree with that, but generosity comes with money. Linda and I started something probably a couple of years ago. We have a local grocery store on the south side of Lima. It's kind of a poor neighborhood, fewer people working, a lot of people sitting around, and they come to the restore and looking for cheap things. And we discovered that one of the most embarrassing things, and we got food stamps when I got out of the Navy and I was going to school, University of Washington. That's how little money we had. So we know what it means to be dependent on help. And we discovered some people come through with a basket full of groceries, and their EBT card, you took the place of food stamps, there wasn't enough money on it to pay for everything in it. So they have to decide what to put back. That's embarrassing. So we bought a ruler. The store, by the way, is called Ruler. It's a Kroger knockoff. They're trying to compete with all these. We bought a $200 gift card from them and gave it to the cashier. So anybody who doesn't have enough money on their EBT card, to avoid the embarrassment, use that card. Later, we heard from them how much people appreciated that, because it is embarrassing to be poor. It's also expensive to be poor in this country. You tend to pay more for things than you would otherwise. So generosity. Now, there's a number of reasons to be generous. One is called philanthropy. Philanthropy means to be generous with people because they're humans. It's sort of a human response, right? Another would be what? There's a whole bunch of reasons why you would want to be generous. The one I think that is missing from all the lists I've ever seen is worship. Generosity with God is an act of worship. When I started doing this stewardship material back in 1991, I went to all kinds of conferences and churches and discovered that the Sunday morning offering was kind of like a financial collection time. A little embarrassing, so we covered it up with music, right? While the plate went back and forth. And I gave people that little dinky plate. That's not big enough plate. You put a basket back and forth. You really want people to be generous, make it possible to be generous, right? So at one point in a conference I was at, had people with shopping carts going up and down the aisle. Because generosity is something you learn. It's not instinctive, although it might be. Children, after a while, learn. My children's story this morning has to do with sharing. You have to learn to be generous, and you learn that from your parents, and your parents learn it from their parents. So grandparents teaching generosity is a major issue in this country. I'm appalled at how cheap we can be sometimes with each other. I'm also delighted when I see outrageous generosity. You know, people being generous to other people. Don't have to do it. There's no reward to it. But in worship on Sunday morning, the Sunday morning offering, well, I guess you have a basket in the back. I don't know how you feel about that. I wonder, hey, why not bring us this? What I want to do is to collect it all. You know, Paul says this generosity is seen by God. God notices during worship. So what I did do when I'm once in a while asked to preach about this at our home church in First Mennonite, is to bring those plates back up. And instead of giving them to the elder to take it to the bank, here, Lord, this is it. This is how much we love you. Because generosity is an expression of our love for God. And I really think that's important. Okay, so you get the point? What things mean determines how we think about them. What we think they mean determines how we relate to them. And if you can get down to the what I would call the inherent usefulness of something, transportation for a car, shelter, hospitality for a house, nutrition for a food, and usefulness, including generosity, for money. If we can get around to thinking about that way, then that changes how we relate to things. Okay? That's pretty simple stuff. I mean, I don't think it's rocket science. Some people do, but I don't. What do you think? You got questions? All right. What?
So, when you ask people for that financial statement, has anybody ever responded?
Oh, yeah. Once in a while, they say, oh, great, yeah, we'll be glad to send that to you. Yeah. Those tend to be people who are being responsible with the money that they receive. They are also people who tend to be in what we would call a reputable ministry or charity of some sort. I mean, there are some absolute scoundrels raising money. There's a guy he's in Wisconsin, if he's not in prison yet, who had 4 charities. I don't know if you know this. There are how many million charities? I looked it up once. There are millions of charities, right? And tax-free, right? And this guy has 4 of them, and in every one of them, the word 9/11, fireman, policeman, orphan, widow. Those names, those words are in the names of the charities. And he rakes in millions of dollars, $4 million one year, right? And doesn't send a dime anywhere. That's all management expense, right? He's an absolute scoundrel, right? He's under, well, last time I looked, he was under indictment by a couple of state attorney generals. He probably won't get away with it. But people keep sending him money because of those names. We have one, it's a local, this is the Patrolman Benefit Association, right? And then you look them up and find out, and the State Patrol in Ohio will tell you this, they have no connection at all to the State Patrol. They just use that name to get charity, to get us to send them money. So when you are generous, be careful where you send it.
Do you comment on organizations that hire fundraising groups to raise money for them for the charity?
Yeah, well, that's what this guy does. He pays fundraisers to raise money, and he keeps, I think, 70% of what they raise. Now, I don't want to be totally negative about people who do fundraising as a business. I wouldn't want to do it. But usually they don't know anything about the charity, and you can tell that in the phone call. They don't have that information. So can you tell me where the head office is? I have to look. Well, if you have to look to see where the head office is, you don't work for them, right? You're a contractor who the head office has contracted with. But being careful with generosity, being careful with your giving, charitable giving, is important. I'm absolutely amazed. Heard about this hacking group that they hacked this ransomware with this, what was the name, a Colonial Oil Company on the East Coast, right? Man, if you're that good with computers, why can't you make it an honest living? Well, you probably won't get. How much did they pay them? How much? $4 million, right, to turn the key back on or whatever they do. I don't know what they do. Yeah, yeah. I'm really amazed at that. Okay, the first lesson I learned in seminary is when you're done, shut up. So I'm done. Thank you. What? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry about that. Linda, my wife and reminder-in-chief, has told me about that. Let me write it down here for you. www.give.org. There's a couple more like it, but these people, this is the Better Business Bureau, and what they do is they investigate charities as to how they do business and how many family members are on the board and all that kind of stuff. That's a very good website, and you type in the charity you're interested in giving to, and they'll tell you whether they have complied with the reports that the Better Business Bureau requires. Sadly, a lot of our television ministries, like, I'm not going to name any, but refuse to give them that information. It's a privacy issue for them. So if you're not willing to tell me how you spend the money I give you, I'm not going to give you any money. I think that's pretty simple. Thank you, Linda. Okay, we got a break.